Yes, I know this video is almost 6 months too late, and you can thank Godzilla Minus One for that. Welcome back to The Haunted Beard, everybody. Thank you once again for joining me. So it is finally time to give you my favorite horror movies of 2023. Yes, I know I am way too late in this, but I have kind of a personal philosophy when it comes to best of the year videos, in that I'm not going to release my top of the year until I have seen every movie of the given year that I want to see. Otherwise, it's just incomplete, and what's the point? Well, freaking Godzilla Minus One was the holdout. I had seen everything that I wanted to see for 2023 in January, except for Godzilla Minus One, and for 6 months it was in the dark, and finally, out of the blue, it dropped on Netflix, like last week, I think. And so I finally was able to watch the last movie from 2023 that I wanted to watch. And I'm glad I held out and waited for it because it is on this list. So without further ado, here are my best horror movies of 2023. Let's do it. I'm not going to limit myself to a top 10. I'm just going to talk about all the movies that I think are worth talking about. And I've got 12 of them for you for this list. So here we go. Coming in at number 12 is going to be the latest from the VHS series, and that is VHS 85. Had a pretty good time with this thing. Obviously, with this one, you got the anthology style to it. Some are better than others, but there were two segments in this movie that caused it to end up on my best of the year list. The first one is No Wake, and this was such a fun one. I love what they did here by dividing it up into two separate segments. That was something we had never seen in any of the VHS series before. And I thought it was just a great idea because there was enough of a concept and a story here to kind of warrant that. You've got this group of friends who go out on this camping trip, and there is something mysterious about the lake, and all hell breaks loose. It's got some really gnarly, shocking moments that really grab you, and you have no idea what's going on. So as if that isn't shocking enough, and then there's a little twist on it. And then when this one ended, it kind of left me a little unsatisfied, but then they tacked on some more by bringing it full circle and adding a whole nother segment to, expand on it, which I thought was just great. And so I was a big fan of No Wake. And then also Dream Kill is one of my top 3 or 4 segments out of the entire VHS franchise. I love this one. I know it plays a little fast and loose with some of the strict found footage rules, but I thought it was just so effectively done and really kind of disturbing and creepy. Some of that first-person POV stuff, the actual dream footage of the murders, is really messed up and unsettling, but I thought really effective. I really like the concept and the idea here about this detective getting these tapes of murders that they haven't even uncovered yet, and then all of a sudden he uncovers the crime scene. And so just a really cool story concept, executed really well, just some really memorable, shocking sequences. So yeah, those two segments out of VHS 85 warranted its addition to my list. All right, coming in at number 11 is going to be No One Will Save You. And this was a pleasant surprise. This was a film that dropped directly to streaming on Hulu. And when I first watched this, I had hardly any expectations for it at all. Direct to streaming, PG-13 horror, just this 90-minute kind of thing. And I was like, all right, it's probably going to be pretty generic, formulaic stuff. But I was pleasantly surprised. One of the main highlights is the performance by Caitlin Dever. I think she does an excellent job given some of the limitations that she had to work with. And this had a lot more depth to it than I initially expected. And it just goes to some unexpected places. It has some nice twists and surprises along the way. It just has some good thrills and good tension. And the whole development of the story just feels so spontaneous. Like we're just on this crazy kind of roller coaster ride, and we have no idea if it's going up or down or this way or that way or whatever. You're just kind of along for the ride. I also like the look of the alien. Just the creature design's pretty cool as well. So yeah, No One Will Save You comes in at number 11. Coming in at number 10 is going to be House LLC Origins. And this was another pleasant surprise for me. Given the quality of Hell House Part 3, I didn't expect a whole lot from this, but it delivered. It has some really solid found footage sequences in it. I like them kind of elaborating on just the world and kind of exploring more of the world. I like the connection that it has back to the original. There's enough there to kind of, it makes it feel fresh while also tying into, the other Hell House films. The clowns, man, the freaking clowns are creepy. And I'm not even afraid of clowns in real life, but the clowns in this are pretty good stuff. So there's just they're really effective sequences. The one sequence with the girl seeing somebody like coming up the stairs and seeing her while she's having this like Zoom call meeting is really well done. I think one of the best horror sequences of the year. So Hell House LLC Origins is pretty solid stuff. Comes in at number 10. Coming in at number 9, and this is in my opinion like the hidden gem of the year that nobody was talking about. I still haven't even heard anybody else talking about it. Didn't see it show up on anybody's list. But for me, it is a film called Brooklyn 45. This is a Shudder original film, and I was really impressed with this thing. This movie has one of my favorite types of presentations. You may even call it a bit of a trope, but I just dig it, where you get this small cast of characters and you isolate them to one room and you just let stuff happen and watch the story unfold. And I call it the stage play type presentation, which is really kind of what it is. I just love that. And I love to see what filmmakers and writers are able to do given these very, restrictive limitations and stuff like that. And Brooklyn 45 delivers. And this one is about this group of friends who had all served together in World War II, and they are coming back together to kind of reunite and reminisce about their past. And they start kind of peeling back some layers, and there are some, hidden secrets and some not great stuff that gets pulled back and gets revealed. And I was just along for the ride. This one has some really interesting kind of themes and ideas and just some thought-provoking stuff. There's more depth to it than I would have expected. And it's just a good, dramatic, and tension-filled ride. It's got some nice twists and turns. The pacing's good. The story keeps things moving. It's got some interesting characters and things like that. And I just kind of like the different directions it goes and the different ideas it explores. Like I said, this is like the hidden gem of all of last year. If you haven't seen Brooklyn 45, I would recommend it. Coming in at number 7, and this is the film that had my number 1 horror movie moment of the year, and that is When Evil Lurks. And I'm talking about the moment with the dog. If you know, you know. When Evil Lurks is another Shudder original, and this was directed by Argentinian filmmaker Damien Rugna, who is now, as far as I'm concerned, 2 for 2, and he is somebody to definitely keep an eye on. Look, this movie is just nuts. It's intense, it's brutal and gnarly and bloody and very shocking. And I also think it's unique and creative and gives a really fresh twist on a demon possession movie, which is got to be one of the most tired, worn-out subgenres that very rarely do we see any sort of original take on a demonic possession movie. It's just something that's been done so many times, the same way over and over again. And then we get When Evil Lurks, and it just gives us a nice, fresh take on the possession movie. And what I really liked and thought was an interesting choice was that it totally devoids the demon possession with any sort of religious connection. And it makes it more like dark and nihilistic because of it. Like, this is a world where God is dead. And when God is dead, there is no hope. And When Evil Lurks wants to explore just the hopelessness of it all. So yeah, When Evil Lurks is dark and messed up and pretty unforgettable, really effective horror. And that's why it comes in at number 8. Coming in at number 7 is, for me anyway, the surprise hit of the year, and that is Saw 10. And I think I speak for everybody in that I had pretty much zero expectations going into Saw 10, and it's another one that I was pleasantly surprised with. And I feel like that's kind of a recurring theme now as I'm realizing, making my way through this list. Oh, this was a pleasant surprise. Oh yeah, that was too. And so, Yeah, this one, I try to keep open expectations going into every movie as best as I can. And Saw 10, you had 9 of these movies and you're like, I mean, come on. Like, just, stick a fork in this franchise. It's done. But here we go. Saw 10. It's pretty great stuff. I really enjoyed it. I think it has one of the best traps in the entire franchise where the dude is locked in and having to pull out brain matter. Such an insane trap, and I love it. It's great stuff. And the filmmakers and the writers here made the best possible decision in that they gave us a movie that focused solely on John Kramer, because he is, as far as I'm concerned, and I think pretty much everybody who's a fan of these films is, he's the best thing about these films. And unfortunately, the majority of them are told in flashback because it's after he died, and he just feels like this totally tacked on, unnecessary character that doesn't fit within stuff. But here they went back into the timeline and gave us a movie that's all about John Kramer, and it is pretty great stuff. Tobin Bell's obviously great, and this is a film that just completely injects brand new life into this old franchise now, and you can't even believe it. If you would have told me before I saw it, I'd be saying, I can't wait for Saw 11. There's no way I would have believed you, but yeah, I'm looking forward to Saw 11 and seeing what direction they take this franchise. And that's why Saw 10 comes in at number 7. Coming in at number 6 is going to be Scream 6. And I will say there are probably some other films already mentioned on this list that are better movies, although I still do think this is a good film, but this is just kind of more of a personal favorite, so to speak, because I'm totally aware there are some issues. I wasn't a huge fan of how they handled the climactic sequence, but I just love these movies, and I just love being in this world. I'm liking the new characters that they've got, and I just really had a fun time with this movie. I like the change of pace. I like that they now set it in New York. I really like the opening sequence with Samara Weaving, and then kind of the unexpected little twist there with the reveal. Ghostface takes his mask off, and then, he goes home and then gets killed, and then there's another Ghostface, and just a lot of good stuff here. I like that they kind of amped up some of the brutality and the violence here and stuff like that. Always good stuff. So, yeah, I'm just a fan of these movies. They're kind of like comfort food almost. Just a lot of fun. I just have so much enjoyment when watching these movies, and Scream 6 is no exception. And that's why it comes in at number 6. All right, next up at number 5 is Godzilla Minus One. This is a movie that I had pretty much no interest in watching when it originally came out, but then the reviews were glowing and over the top, and I was like, it's a Godzilla movie. How good could it possibly be? It's a giant lizard that destroys cities. How good could it possibly be? But I just kept seeing more and more positive reviews, and I was like, well, I should at least, give it a watch and check it out. And I was in the dark for the last 6 months. I didn't get a chance to catch it in theaters, but finally, thank God for Netflix, they just dropped it. I just finished watching it last night, so it's fresh in my mind. And man, this is such a fun movie. And what makes this so great is its focus on the characters. This is not just a movie about a giant lizard destroying, Japan kind of thing. It's a human drama, with focusing on characters, and then, Godzilla is kind of there in the background. But you see this film through these characters, and the main character, Shikishima, is just great. It's a movie that deals with, real human emotions and difficulties. And, this is a guy who's struggling with, regret and shame and fear and responsibility and duty and honor and things like that. And there's just a lot of really good, strong themes in it. This movie has so much heart. I just did not expect it to have that much heart, but it really does. And it just connects with you on an emotional and dramatic level. And it's because of the characters. And so the writing is to be commended for that. The directing is to be commended for that. And on top of the good characters and writing, you get some pretty sweet Godzilla violence that I thoroughly enjoyed. And this movie just pretty much had me through and through the entire 2-hour runtime, where I was emotionally invested. I was hooked in. I was thrilled. It tugged at my heartstrings a little bit. I was excited. I was shocked and jaw dropped, stuff like that as well. Man, when Godzilla glows blue and shoots that freaking laser beam out of his mouth or whatever it is, holy cow, man, talk about a crazy moment. Yeah, it's just great stuff. I thoroughly enjoyed this. A lot of fun. That's why it comes in at number 5. Next up at number 4 is going to be Evil Dead Rise. Yeah, this is a fun one. This one just delivered the good, gnarly, demonic, bloody, gory violence, and I was all here for it. I liked the change of setting a little bit, and this is one that's just pretty much pure horror. There's not a whole lot there to the plot. We kind of know what we're getting into. The characters are pretty good, serviceable enough, pretty good. I really like Alyssa Sutherland. I thought her performance is really great. But this is just one that, if you just want some gnarly, bloody violence, you're going to get it. I love the cheese grater scene. The whole climactic sequence with the wood chipper is freaking awesome. And yeah, this just thoroughly quenched my horror thirst. It's just a blast. It's just good horror, man. And so, yeah, that's why it's my number 4. Next up at number 3 is Infinity Pool. And this takes just the most wild concept. This is probably the most, maybe along with When Evil Lurks, just the most kind of twisted and disturbed and messed up movie of the year. Really great performance by Mia Goth. I mean, she's just phenomenal. This one has some just wild, trippy visuals. It's such a unique kind of visual presentation to it all. The whole concept behind the cloning, it just has some really dark, twisted themes. And, it's just memorable. This movie is kind of scarring. And, it definitely leaves an impression. It goes to some just weird, twisted places. It's just kind of messed up. And I dug it. Yeah. Brandon Cronenberg, keep making more stuff. I love this guy's headspace. I love what he's doing. And Infinity Pool is no exception. It's good stuff, man. I dug it. That's why it's my number 3. All right, coming in at number 2 is going to be Talk to Me. And this is the directorial debut, which is unbelievable, from the Philippou brothers. This is, man, such an excellent film. This film has probably the best combination of like true pure horror mixed with a very strong, engaging story with very strong and well-developed characters. I think just kind of all around, man, it's very well executed and just a very well put together film. Part of what makes the horror so effective is because the characters are well developed and you sympathize with them. You understand why they're doing the things that they're doing. The one scene involving the younger kid, I can't recall his name offhand, one of the best horror scenes of 2023. Just such a very sad and shocking and just messed up scene, but just so well done. And I like just what they do with this idea and how they execute this idea. Just some really top-notch horror stuff. I like this world. I'm very intrigued to see what they do with the second film. I feel like there's so much more of this world to explore and expand on. So very, very curious to see where they take it. And the ending is also pretty solid stuff as well. And yeah, Talk to Me is pretty great. That's why it's my number 2. All right, we've reached the end, and my number 1 favorite horror film of 2023. This is probably going to be a divisive one, but for me anyways, it is Beau Is Afraid. Ari Aster, I think, is just at a different level. And yes, this movie isn't just straight pure horror, but it definitely has some horror elements into it and has just some really twisted, messed up kind of dark comedy woven into some horrific elements, and is also just kind of an anxiety-inducing movie. This is such a wild ride. And in terms of creativity and ambition and something just totally different, Beau Is Afraid stands alone. And this movie is, it's so artistic and creative and unique. And I love just all the different flavors that Ari Aster brings to it. This is like just this amalgamation of all sorts of wild, different ideas and and different kind of visual expressions and just different concepts. Joaquin Phoenix is great. And there's just so much to say about this movie. It's such this wild combination of all sorts of different things, and I've never really quite seen anything like it. And so for me personally, on my personal list, I tend to kind of elevate, ambition and creativity, even if it doesn't totally land. That to me is just kind of the most important thing that I look for in a movie. And this movie has just ambition and creativity off the charts. I just love Ari Aster's headspace. He's doing stuff that I have never seen before in ways that I've never seen either. And so, yeah, Beau Is Afraid, man. It's a wild one. It's, I know it's very divisive. It's kind of a love it or hate it type thing, and I totally get it. But man, this thing is a blast and is just so wild and crazy, and I just kind of loved it. And so that's why it's my #1 movie of 2023. That's all I got for you, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Greatly appreciate it. If you got anything out of this video, go ahead and do me a favor and do not click that subscribe button unless you want to be haunted by the beard.